Shaka and Zigzag, two wild male lions born in 2014 in Kruger National Park, South Africa, one of the largest and most biodiverse game reserves on Earth. Sons of the legendary Matimba coalition, they rose from vulnerable cubs to become rulers of multiple lion prides. For 8 years, they defied the odds in one of the most dangerous ecosystems on the planet. Through brute force, strategic intelligence, and primal instinct, they carved out a legacy remembered by researchers, guides, and wildlife enthusiasts. But like all kings, their reign would not last forever. What follows is not just a biography. It is a chronicle of power, blood, survival, and inevitable fall. If stories like this move you, subscribe to the channel and leave a like to help us preserve the legacy of these legends who once walked among us. The 5 cubs were born into one of the most formidable dynasties Kruger had known. Their fathers, the Matimba males, were not merely dominant. They were architects of blood-soaked reigns, known for driving rivals into exile and leaving silence where chaos once ruled. The Matimbas had carved out a legacy across multiple territories, and their offspring were expected to inherit both their strength and their enemies. The cubs grew quickly. They played, hunted insects, pounced on birds, and wrestled endlessly. But in Kruger, play is never innocent. Every game is a lesson in power, every bite a rehearsal for survival. Among them were Shaka, the eldest, and Zigzag, the smallest, who would later earn the name Scar after a deep cut marked his face. Yet the wild offers no promise of unity. As the cubs matured into subadults, the weight of nature's cruelty began to fracture them. 2 brothers broke away to form their own coalition. A third, injured during a failed hunt, disappeared into the bush, bleeding and alone. In Kruger, a lion without allies is already dead. Only 2 remained, Shaka and Zigzag brothers, forged not by comfort, but by loss. What was once a pride of 5 became a partnership of survivors. And from that crucible, a new coalition would emerge, one that would reshape the hierarchy of Kruger. The 2 surviving brothers did not merely endure, they adapted. Shaka, with a mane like burning embers, carried the presence of a warlord. Zigzag, smaller but quicker, bore the look of one who had seen too much too soon. Their unity was absolute, bound not only by blood but by the shared memory of abandonment and death. They began as wanderers, nomads in a land already divided by powerful coalitions. They had no territory, no allies, and no females, but they had hunger. In Kruger, that is often enough. Against all expectation, they challenged older, larger coalitions. They did not just survive the battles, they won them. The wilderness took notice. So did the guides, the researchers, and the silent, watching herds. The brothers became known as the Mbiri males, a name that would echo across the savannah for years to come. Their story was no longer that of orphans. It was the beginning of something else, a reign that would defy probability, a chapter written in defiance of nature's own rules. By 2017, the Mbiri brothers had done the unthinkable. At only 3 years of age, Shaka and Zigzag took control of their first pride, the Savannan females. The territory they seized was fertile, rich with prey and water, perfectly placed between riverine forest and open savanna. It was the kind of land for which older, larger coalitions had died. Yet the Mbiris took it with a fury that stunned even seasoned observers. With territory came status. With status came legacy. In 2018, the lionesses of Savannan gave birth to the first generation of Mbiri offspring. For most lions, cubs are merely a biological continuation. For dominant males, they are living proof of conquest. Each cub was a flag planted in the future. Each cry a declaration, we are here to stay. But Shaka and Zigzag were not just kings by right of muscle. They remained present. Unlike many males who vanished between matings and patrols, the Mbiri brothers lingered near the pride. They guarded, they watched, they defended. Shaka would often be seen standing over his cubs as they slept, his scarred eyes scanning the horizon. In the predator-rich heart of Kruger, their rule was not uncontested. Rogue males circled. Rival coalitions tested the boundaries. Hyenas probed the shadows, but none could break through. For years every challenger fell. The brothers seemed untouchable. They were no longer just survivors. They were sovereigns, and their reign had only just begun. Power changes the nature of all kings. For Shaka, it revealed something darker, something ancient. Unlike most lions who avoid direct conflict with hyenas, he hunted them. When clans approached a kill, testing the brothers' patience, it was Shaka who struck. He didn't just chase them off, he killed them violently, deliberately. And then, something rare happened. He devoured them. Not as a starving lion desperate for meat, but as a ritual. He ate alone, never sharing with Zigzag or the Pride. Not a scrap. At first, observers thought it was dominance. Then it became his signature. The hyena, long the symbol of cunning and chaos, was no longer a threat. It was prey. Shaka's name spread among guides and tourists. He became known as the Hyena Eater. Stories blurred into legend. Sightings of him devouring a fallen hyena became pilgrimage-worthy moments for those who roamed the park. He was more than a lion. He was fear given form. A monarch who ruled not only through might, but through myth. To his enemies, he was death on 4 legs. To his cubs, he was shelter. To the savannah, he was something old, something it hadn't seen in decades. By 2020, the Mbiri coalition was no longer merely dominant. They were calculated, precise, and adaptive. Shaka and Zigzag had taken a second pride and expanded their influence across multiple territories. But what marked this phase of their reign was not brutality. It was strategy. In a move that stunned even veteran researchers, the brothers took over a third pride, one that already had subadult males. The law of the savannah dictated that these young lions should be killed. New males always slaughter the cubs and rivals left behind by the previous rulers. It is a brutal cleansing, ensuring that only their bloodline continues. But Shaka and Zigzag broke the rule. They spared the young males. Not out of mercy, but out of vision. They trained them, led them on buffalo hunts, taught them discipline, defense, and the silent language of dominance. These would-be victims became soldiers. They patrolled the territory, guarded the lionesses, and even earned mating rights with younger females. The Mbiri coalition had evolved. They were no longer just warriors. They were architects, but every empire that builds must also bear its own weight. And weight in the wild is never carried without cost. Time in Kruger is the most ruthless predator. The soldiers once trained by Shaka and Zigzag grew in strength and ambition. Their loyalty, born of survival, began to wither under the weight of desire. They no longer wanted a place beside the kings. They wanted the throne. The Mbiri brothers expelled them. The former students were now threats. But without them, the burden of rule grew heavier. Patrols became longer, hunts became harder. The kings aged. Shaka's once mighty frame showed signs of decline. Tumors appeared. His weight dropped. Zigzag too slowed. The fire in their bones still burned, but the flesh around it began to crack. By 2025, they had ruled for 8 years, an eternity in lion years, double the average reign. Their legacy was unmatched, but the cost had come due. The golden mane once feared by hyenas grew thin. The roar that had once shaken trees was now hoarse, rasped. The shadows around them lengthened. The kings had not been defeated in battle. Not yet, but they were being undone by something deeper, inevitable and unseen. The wild, which had once crowned them, now whispered of their end, and the lions of tomorrow had begun to listen. On September 9th, 2025, Shaka faced his final battle. Alone, separated from Zigzag, he encountered a group of younger rival males. The fight was brief. His strength was no longer enough. He did not run. He did not yield, but he fell. And in the bitter twist of fate that only the wild can deliver, the lion once known for devouring hyenas was devoured by them. His body, abandoned after the battle, was found torn apart by a hyena clan, his old enemies feasting on their mythic predator. Zigzag survived, but as a shadow of himself. The territories they once ruled were taken by Shaka's killers. Yet in a rare gesture, Zigzag was tolerated by the new rulers, not as a threat but as a ghost, a remnant of a dynasty that had passed, not a king, not a warrior, just a memory. If this story moved you, let it be remembered. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or tributes to Shaka and Zigzag. Subscribe to the channel for more legendary stories from the wild. Let their legacy echo beyond the savannah.